Writing to Persuade, an editor's guide to bringing people to your side, Trish Hall. Us equals sharing author's background served as the person in charge of op-ed for the New York Times for almost 5 years, oversaw a dozen editors who read submissions from diverse contributors, had assistants who reviewed hundreds of unsolicited manuscripts weekly, was surprised by the poor quality of writing from many famous and successful people, had previously worked as a journalist with no personal agenda or arguments to make, initially found the world of opinion foreign and frightening, recognized her tendency to be a chameleon in her approach to connecting with subjects, lacked academic experience in opinion writing, before taking the op-ed position, book purpose to share lessons learned about writing and editing persuasive content to help readers effectively convey their points across various formats. Op-eds, academic papers, job-seeking emails, personal communications, to occasionally explore the psychology underlying persuasive approaches. 15 Principles of Persuasive Writing. 1. Listen to people. Focus on your audience, not yourself. Know who they are and understand their feelings. Persuasion is about them, not you. 2. We believe what we believe. People cling to opinions for various reasons. Negative information about someone's preferred position may strengthen their support. People invest in their opinions and resist changing them. Sometimes changing minds is not possible. 3. Respect your audience. Practice empathy. Try to understand what it feels like to be them. Essential though challenging. 4. Don't get into fights. Arguing typically doesn't work. People become defensive or tune out. Avoid confrontational phrases like "you're wrong." 5. Play on feelings. Emotions are more important than facts. Facts should be used almost medically with the right dose. People respond to emotionally engaging information. 6. Understand moral values. Values shape how people interpret the world. Approach audiences with their values in mind, not yours. 7. Emphasize your similarities. People agree more readily with those similar to themselves. Likeable people are more persuasive. Be positive and personable. Admit when you're wrong. Apologies and admissions of error can be powerful. 8. Write about what you know. Focus on areas where your expertise is uncontested. Draw from personal experience and knowledge. 9. Surprise your reader. Stand out amid competing words and images. Add new ideas to the conversation. Make content relevant and urgent, regardless of length. 10. Be specific. Use vivid language and startling ideas to capture attention. Avoid generalities. Incorporate concrete, tangible details and images. 11. Tell stories. Everyone responds to stories. Stories enhance facts but don't replace them. 12. Facts aren't magic. Facts alone won't convince people. People hear what they want to hear. We process facts selectively, sometimes unconsciously. A startling fact can be the foundation for great writing. 13. Facts do matter. Mistakes will be called out. Check facts carefully. Mishandled facts will undermine your work. 14. Abandon jargon. Smart ideas can be smothered by jargon. Avoid cliches, which readers tend to skip over. 15. Prune ruthlessly. Most people use too many words. Edit aggressively. Additional writing advice. Read books on writing technique, including The Elements of Style by Strunk and White, on Writing Well by William Zinsser. Draft No. 4 by John McPhee. Bird by and Lammert. No one ever learns everything about writing. Read omnivorously to improve writing. Those who read constantly tend to write coherently. 1. Becoming a writer. Author's early life and relationship with reading. The author felt they were born to be a writer. 4 emotional and psychological reasons. Had material advantages as a child, but was often unhappy. Found escape through reading books. Lived in northeastern Pennsylvania in a ranch house until age 8. Father ran away to California with a neighbor, mother of the author's friend. Moved to grandmother's house after father left. Explored woods, streams, and a gypsy encampment near their new home. Regularly walked to town center of Dallas, Pennsylvania. Would eat shoofly pie and visit the library for new books. Had little in common with extroverted mother but shared ice cream preferences, coffee and mint chocolate chip. By high school, had read most of the young adult section in the library books. Transported the author to cities around the world and introduced characters who felt more real than people in real life. Now recognizes their failure to see the depth in small-town life and its stories. The author's childhood wasn't all bad. Played the chase with neighborhood kids on summer nights. Had 2 brothers and many close friends. Enjoyed weekend sleepovers and roller skating rink parties. Entertained friends with stories about wild neighborhood parties. Early influences and aspirations. Grew up without museums or classical music. Memorable cultural experience. Sneaking into drive-in to see Butterfield 8, about infidelity. Developed lasting interest in books and movies about infidelity. Didn't know any writers in small-town Pennsylvania. Believed all writers lived in New York City and wanted to move there. Made occasional trips to New York with mother, aunt, and cousin. Was impressed by mother's single friend who worked at Saks Fifth Avenue. Educational influences. Mrs. Shorts, 7th and 8th grade English teacher, Smith College graduate. Mrs. Shorts was passionate about proper grammar, especially like VS as teacher. Assigned daily writing responses, 1 to 3 sentences, to be read to class. This exercise taught brevity and conscious word choice. Mrs. Shorts encouraged the author's writing ambitions. Father was also strict about proper speech and grammar. First writing experiences: wrote for grade school yearbook, including essay The Difference Between Wisdom and Intelligence, wrote for high school newspaper, joined college newspaper, Daily Californian. During sophomore year at Berkeley found purpose and identity through journalism. Early career lessons. Michael J. Hall, student city editor, became first role model. Learned newspaper basics, writing fast, asking questions, meeting deadlines. Overcame first setback when lost interview notes, had to re-interview professor, eventually became core staff member. Working as reporter and editor, learned about journalism's real-world impact during People's Park controversy. Editorial board risked indictment after publishing piece that allegedly incited a riot. Advice for aspiring writers: mine your personal history. 4. Writing subjects: find mentors who believe in your abilities, join or start writing groups and publications, be open to feedback, learn from various teachers, not just professors, persist through difficulties and setbacks. Early journalism experiences: the author was involved with a college newspaper at Berkeley that lost university funding after publishing a controversial editorial, which the author had abstained from voting on. This experience taught the author that no one agrees what is, but you have to do your best to get the details right. The author gained significant experience in college, including working as a stringer for the Associated Press, being a reporter and editor for a prominent college newspaper, being the first woman at Berkeley to cover a riot, having her own assigned gas mask for riot coverage. Early career: after college, the author applied to newspapers within 40 miles of New Haven, Connecticut, where her boyfriend would be studying. She took the first job offered, becoming a reporter in Danbury. Later moved to a copy editor position in New Haven at the New Haven Job. She was surrounded mostly by older men. Her boss, Mr. Granger, treated her respectfully. She faced sexual harassment. An older male editor once told her, "I could rape you right now," in an elevator. She discovered a male colleague with similar qualifications made 20% more than she did fighting workplace discrimination. Joined approximately 20 women in suing the company that owned the New Haven newspapers. The lawsuit focused on salary discrimination rather than sexual harassment, which wasn't yet legally defined. Found it difficult to face her boss. After joining the lawsuit, simultaneously helped organize a union at the newspaper. Career growth: joined a small news service in Hartford run by a woman named Gail. They covered state government for about 30 client newspapers. Worked long hours, 8 a.m. to 10 to 11 p.m. in the state capitol building. This experience taught her she could write and still be happy. After 2 legislative sessions, became editor of the New Haven Advocate, a weekly arts and news publication. Later worked at Connecticut Magazine as an editor and writer. Moved to New York just before turning 30. Had previously been rejected after a copy editing tryout at the New York Times. An editor told her she would never make it on a big city newspaper. Got a job at AP Radio working midnight to 8 a.m. shift, condensing news stories into 3 sentences each. After less than a year, got a tryout at the Wall Street Journal for an editing position. Wall Street Journal success: got hired as an editor at the Wall Street Journal for the second front page. This job gave her confidence as she realized some writers at the prestigious paper couldn't write as well as I could. Asked her boss if she could become a reporter, though such a switch was uncommon. On her own time, reported a story about filmmaker John Waters at age 32. Had her first story published on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. This achievement validated her as a writer, fulfilling a prediction from her teacher. Mrs. Short's key life lessons: the importance of persistence despite rejection, the value of forming bonds with colleagues, the significant influence friends and mentors can have on one's career trajectory. Working hard and taking risks leads to happiness. Every job, even seemingly undesirable ones, can teach valuable skills too. Becoming an editor: career transition and reflections. The author initially worked as an editor at the Wall Street Journal, working 10 to 6 daily, editing others' work. They questioned whether editing was just a day job or a passion. They were uncertain if they were meant to be a writer or not. The author references John McPhee's draft number 4, which describes writing as torment, especially first drafts. Despite the agony, writing offers greater glamour and recognition than editing. The author found editing easier than reporting, with less competition for good jobs. Learning to edit: the author's best editing teacher at the Journal was Fred Zimmerman. Fred demanded relentless editing to make the paper sophisticated yet readable. Their job involved deconstructing complicated ideas to make them understandable. Fred was brutally honest, hiring the author with a warning that they might fail. The author learned to eliminate jargon, cliches, and overused words. They were taught to use conversational language and avoid business babble. Business writing and editing: the author lists many examples of business jargon to avoid, e.g., win-win, thought leaders, scalable. They also list overused words to rest, e.g., monetize, optimize, impactful, Journal editors were fierce about eliminating jargon and making complex business ideas understandable. The goal was tight writing because business readers want information quickly and efficiently. The journal was considered a second read. Readers were buying other papers as well. Career path evolution. Despite enjoying editing, the author missed reporting and interviewing people. After 3 years as an editor, they became a reporter at the journal. They covered food, alcohol, and tobacco, a beat meant for the less financially astute. This led to a job reporting on food at the New York Times. Even with this dream job, they were drawn back to editing. They ultimately ran food coverage at the Times. Management philosophy. Each editor transforms a publication with their biases and interests. The author focused on sociology and nutrition in food coverage. They learned to be decisive but not domineering as a manager. Bad bosses, those who can't explain what they want, delay decisions, or won't listen to other viewpoints. The author advises finding a new job when working for someone who doesn't help you learn or develop. Writing vs editing preferences. The author found writing to be agony, especially fact-based reporting. They constantly worried about getting facts wrong. Editing felt relaxing, similar to the reading they enjoyed in childhood. They viewed editing as a game or mental activity, like crossword puzzles. For others, this perception changed when they were put in charge of the op-ed section of the Times' 3-running op-ed. The author recounts a night of anxiety after publishing an op-ed by Vladimir Putin, fearing it might be a hoax that could end their career. They received the op-ed from a PR executive claiming to represent Putin, and made editing suggestions that had to be approved by the Kremlin. Confirmation of Putin's authorship came from their boss Andy Rosenthal, who had received a call from a Times Moscow correspondent. The author shares editorial best practices, including verifying sources and checking for conflicts of interest. They describe journalism as brutal and exhausting, with constant criticism and relatively low pay, $52,000 average, though Times reporters earn more. The author explains how they transitioned from managing news feature sections to becoming the op-ed editor at the Times. They detail their interview process with Andy Rosenthal and their initial hesitation about moving from news to opinion. The author struggled initially with the transition, having been trained to be impartial but now needing to work with opinions. They explain the difference between news, balanced reporting of facts, and opinion pieces, making arguments without presenting all views. The author learned from their staff through an internal email system called OpDiscuss, where editors could evaluate potential pieces. Editor Carmel McCoubrey taught them that a good op-ed needs a surprising idea or a surprising person writing. The author contrasts their fast editing style with colleague Aaron Retiker's more deliberate approach. They emphasize the importance of reading widely to recognize original ideas and help writers find their voices. The author praises boss Andy Rosenthal for supporting staff, respecting originality, and promoting gender diversity. The text concludes with relief that the Putin op-ed was legitimate, with no negative fallout for dealing with celebrity submissions. General observations. Famous people were typically troublesome to work with at the publication. Celebrity submissions rarely arrived in perfect condition. Despite their PR resources, celebrities faced the same difficulties making successful arguments as everyone else. Their advantage was direct access to top management, bypassing the slush pile editors. Often considered substandard celebrity pieces solely for the famous names. The publisher, Arthur Sulzberger, and Andy would take responsibility for rejections. The narrator's boss, Andy Rosenthal, never forced the acceptance of substandard pieces. Celebrity behavior and attitude. Celebrities often rejected editing attempts, preferring to publish elsewhere. Famous people had little interest in receiving revision notes. They believed their social media presence gave them leverage. We needed them more than they needed us. Politicians would promise pieces but then never deliver them. Many celebrities believed their names alone were sufficient to guarantee publication. Some would be non-responsive to emails or abusive during editing processes. Not all celebrities were difficult. Some were pleasant to work with. Sheryl Sandberg example. Specific celebrity examples. Bono, U2 singer, submitted a piece that was rejected for being unfocused and unrealistic after specific editing requests. Bono and Zuckerberg delivered an improved piece that was published. A famous novelist withdrew her piece when faced with editing suggestions. Hillary Clinton's team promised an important piece but never delivered it. The author had a positive interaction with Jonathan Franzen despite initial prejudice. Editorial standards and dilemmas. The narrator prioritized reader experience over celebrity status. Maintaining quality standards was essential to avoid disappointing subscribers. Editors faced constant tension between maintaining standards and accommodating famous names. Even accomplished writers and novelists struggled with the op-ed format for publication. All pieces needed to be surprising, concrete, and persuasive. The editor's key principle: it's your writing, not your contacts, that will make you successful. Lowering standards solely for celebrity names would ultimately harm the publication. Personal reflections. Working with celebrities was the narrator's least favorite part of the job. Rejecting celebrity work felt weird, but was necessary for maintaining standards. The narrator admits to occasional misjudgments about people. The Franson example. Editors supported each other when dealing with difficult celebrity interactions. The narrator learned that personal contact rarely helped with acceptance decisions. Part 2. What's your story? 5. Finding your voice. Core message. You don't need to be famous to contribute valuable stories to public conversation. Everyone has unique experiences that can form the basis of compelling writing. Authenticity and personal authority are essential to effective storytelling. The Dylan Farrow-Woody Allen case study. The author, as op-ed editor, received a piece from Dylan Farrow about alleged molestation by Woody Allen. Initially declined to publish it directly as an op-ed due to legal concerns. Allowed it to run in Nick Kristoff's column instead, where Allen could be asked for comment after publication. Allen requested equal space to respond. The author decided to publish Allen's response despite anticipated backlash. This editorial decision highlighted the importance of allowing both sides to tell their stories. Key principles for finding your voice. Tell the story only you can tell. Focus on your singular experiences and perspectives. Your unique viewpoint is what makes your writing valuable. Example: high school students should write about personal experiences with global issues, not just abstract opinions. Establish your authority. Clearly state your credentials or relevant experience. Write with confidence. Even if you don't feel confident, your personal experience makes you an authority on your own story. Write authentically. Use your natural voice rather than attempting to sound like an expert. Add emotion and concrete details to amplify your power. Avoid sounding like a technocrat or using professional jargon. Connect individual experiences to universal interests. Find the broader relevance in your personal story. Make your specific experiences relatable to wider audiences. Techniques for finding your voice. Write with eyes closed to block out distractions. Record voice memos and transcribe them. Write from your deep self rather than your office brain. Remove academic or professional jargon. Case studies of effective voice. Peter Georgescu's Capitalists Arise article, initially too abstract and general, revised to tell his specific story as a wealthy person concerned about inequality. His background as both a refugee and advertising executive gave him unique authority. Original version vs published version comparison shows the power of authentic voice. Academic writing example: before robotic, impersonal writing about Canada Post Corporation. After engaging human perspective on the same topic. Final reflections: ordinary lives can produce extraordinary insights. Reference to Elizabeth Strout's novels. The author published Woody Allen's response despite staff objections. Understanding different perspectives, even controversial ones, has value. Understanding evil is just as important as understanding goodness. 6. When to go. Personal. Key concepts about personal writing. Not every essay needs a personal aspect, but some pieces are more powerful when the writer's personal story is central. Personal stories can make writing more memorable, persuasive, and emotionally resonant. Revealing personal information can be frightening for writers who worry it will make them seem weak. Writers must determine how much personal detail they're willing to share. Notable examples of effective personal writing: Angelina Jolie's op-eds first piece about having preventative double mastectomy due to BRCA1 gene. Second piece about removing ovaries and fallopian tubes. Used her celebrity to help others rather than for self-promotion. Took significant personal and professional risk by sharing intimate health details. Her articles generated millions of views and potentially saved lives. Other prominent examples: Betty Ford's openness about alcohol and drug struggles. Andrew Solomon and William Styron writing about depression. Oliver Sacks documenting his terminal cancer journey. Will Lippincott sharing his suicide attempt and discovery of dialectical behavior therapy. Sam Polk revealing his wealth addiction. As a Wall Street trader. Tim Kreider's essay about his relationship with his cat Mona Simpson's eulogy for her brother Steve Jobs. Editorial perspective on personal writing. Editors often push writers to include more personal details to strengthen their pieces. The author, a former editor, sometimes felt uncomfortable asking for intimate details. Common mistake: writers focus too much on general statements rather than specific personal experiences. Will Lippincott's initial draft focused too much on promoting a therapy and not enough on his personal story. Sam Polk's piece improved dramatically when he added specific details about his family dynamic. Benefits of personal writing: helps readers connect emotionally to the content, makes abstract concepts more concrete and relatable, creates a human connection between writer and reader, potentially helps others going through similar experiences, can lead to higher readership and greater impact. Advice for writers: personal stories should connect to larger universal issues. Be direct and unsentimental when sharing personal details. Expect and ignore negative online comments. Consider how your personal experience might illuminate current news stories. Even seemingly ordinary life experiences can provide valuable Perspective-specific details from your life help make your story both moving and convincing. 7. Know your audience. The importance of listening. The author believes you can't persuade people without first understanding how they feel and where they might be open to change. Our culture struggles with listening. Distracted by technology and self-focused. Listening requires putting away phones and laptops that distract from full attention. Knowing your audience means understanding who they are, what they respond to, their thoughts, fears, and biases. Common listening mistakes. Many people only appear to listen while actually just waiting for their turn to speak, interrupting others. During conversation, author admits this is a personal struggle. Finishing other sentences instead of letting them complete their thoughts. Multitasking during conversations signals the other person is unimportant, showing judgment through expressions or body language. How to be a better listener. Don't shake your head or express negativity while others speak. Avoid giving immediate advice as it shuts down conversation. Don't interrupt or abruptly change subjects. Keep phones away during conversations. Maintain appropriate eye contact. Use encouraging sounds comments to show engagement. Suspend judgment to hear more clearly. Repeat parts of what others say to show understanding. Ask open-ended questions that can't be answered with yes no. Benefits of good listening. The author found as a journalist that people readily shared intimate details when they felt truly heard. Harvard research shows people like those who focus on them and ask questions. Question asking led to better outcomes in dating scenarios. Extended conversations help people find unexpected similarities, creates openness to others' politics and points of view. Understanding larger audiences. Writers must understand the audience of specific publications. Research audience biases by examining popular stories and reader comments read across the political spectrum rather than sources that only confirm existing beliefs. Recognize that smart, rational people may disagree with you for good reasons. Don't stereotype or dismiss those with different viewpoints. Practical applications. The author shares examples from editing. The op-ed section of the New York Times describes how writer Eleanor Burkett effectively reached Times readers by starting with shared values before challenging assumptions. Shows how a legal writer improved an article by addressing reader concerns. Directly emphasizes that understanding audience means knowing what people want to read. Final thought. Truly listening may reveal surprising information that changes your perspective. 8. You like dogs? So do I. Core principles of persuasion. Establish similarities. First, we are more persuaded by people we like and perceive as similar to ourselves. Establishing commonality before discussing disagreements makes audiences more receptive. Research repeatedly confirms this psychological phenomenon. Neurological research shows friends have similar neural responses to stimuli. UCLA and Dartmouth researchers could predict friendship connections based on neural responses to videos. Start with connection, not facts. Don't immediately launch into facts or opinions. Find shared interests or values. You like dogs? So do I. Small talk builds important connections that establish group belonging. Consider what your audience thinks and believes before speaking. Writing. Group belonging increases persuasiveness. People are more receptive to those in their social group. The author was more influenced by criticism from a lifelong friend than from strangers. Group belonging creates trust and shared perspectives. Practical techniques for persuasion. Share personal details. Opening up about yourself encourages reciprocation. Personal vulnerability creates safety and encourages engagement. Makes people see themselves in you, especially important in job interviews. Consider the other person's needs and perspective. Example. Understanding why someone uses a noisy leaf blower changes your approach. Finding mutual benefit is more effective than one-sided demands. Find common ground before addressing differences. Example. In abortion debates. Acknowledging shared values before introducing differences. Lincoln's debating technique. Concede non-essential points to win crucial ones. Use social proof and endorsements. Reference others from the same social group who agree with you. Social influencers leverage this principle effectively. Celebrity endorsements work on the same basis. Mirror the other person. Mimicking body language and speech patterns increases feelings of similarity. Even using the same greeting style in emails builds rapport, making desired behaviors visible. Encourages imitation. Use appropriate flattery. No limit to how much flattery people enjoy as long as it seems genuine. Even impersonal flattery, like marketing flyers, can be effective. Compliments make people more likely to agree with you on unrelated matters. Real-life applications. Making connections through email. 1. Emphasize shared experiences or interests. 2. Show understanding and respect before making requests. Author's personal experience with Rabbi Shmuley Hecht. 1. Effective persuasion through flattery tailored to the author's values. 2. Comparing her to her respected predecessor. 3. Finding unexpected connection despite religious differences. Key takeaways from the author's experience. 1. Focused, meaningful flattery is powerful. 2. Never make assumptions about who your type is. 3. A humorous lesson about accepting rides from strangers. 9. Play on feelings. Opening anecdote. Paul Kalanithi. The author received an essay from Paul Kalanithi, a doctor in his mid-30s with terminal lung cancer. The essay was a nearly perfect piece of writing about Kalanithe's experience of discovering his cancer. The author made only minor edits to the piece. Kalanithi connected to the universal fear of death and argued for living fully. His essay was extremely popular, and he later wrote most of a book, When Breath Becomes Air, that his wife completed after his death. The power of emotional connection to be persuasive. You must connect to your audience emotionally. Persuasion is fundamentally a form of manipulation by stirring feelings and affirming them. Articles that touch emotions are among the most popular on news sites and social media. Successful advertising campaigns like Seamless and Google's Friends Forever effectively tap into emotions. Anger can also be powerful, as demonstrated in Kim Brooks' essay about being arrested for leaving her child in a car. Briefly, the relationship between feelings and rationality. Feelings drive rational conclusions, not the other way around. Research by Tversky and Kahneman disproved the myth that people make choices rationally. People often follow feelings and later develop rationalizations for their actions and beliefs. Donald Trump's presidential campaign masterfully played on people's feelings of marginalization. Psychologists call these mental shortcuts heuristics, rules for quick decision-making that can lead to illogical choices. The impact of emotion in writing. Strong feelings create voice and can help get published. The author cites Paul Theroux's passionate article about damage to the American South after companies moved to China. Emotional stories receive the most distribution on social media. Entertainment like This Is Us provides master classes in playing on feelings. Jerry Saltz's article about his failure as an artist connected emotionally with many young artists. The power of optimism. Humans are inherently optimistic, even in the face of contrary facts. Studies show people readily adopt positive information but ignore negative information. People generally overestimate their lifespan and underestimate their chances of negative events. This optimism is an evolutionary advantage that allows risk-taking and belief in the future. Being perpetually worried about dangers would make functioning difficult. Implications for persuasive writing. Scaring people and negative messaging generally don't work well. Environmental movements have been less effective when using shame and fear tactics. People need balance between threats and solutions with personal messages. Studies show pride messages are more effective than guilt messages in encouraging environmentally friendly choices. People respond better to optimistic moods and positive messages. Applications in marketing and storytelling. Fundraisers emphasizing positive transformations do better than those highlighting grim situations. Nike focuses on inspiring transformation stories rather than fear-based health warnings. Holocaust books that show something positive, like Rescuers, sell better than those set in camps. Even devastating stories like Anne Frank's are more effective when rooted in positive outlooks. For effective persuasion, use more positive than negative statements, avoid depressing images, and don't shame or make people feel guilty. 10. The power of empathy. Real-life example. The author describes a negative interaction with her husband during traffic. Husband is frustrated by another driver cutting them off. Instead of empathizing, she criticizes him, making the situation worse. She realizes this approach only escalated tension. The nature of empathy. Lecturing and hectoring create resistance, not compliance. Psychological research confirms this intuitive understanding. You can't force people to agree. You can only try to influence. Effective persuasion is subtle and indirect, offering suggestions rather than commands. Example: when my wife was trying to lose weight, she cut out wheat and dairy instead of "you should do this." Understanding your audience is crucial. Consider their age, education level, and values. Empathy means sensing what others feel and intuiting how to act on that information. Empathy as a tool. Empathy is morally neutral. It can be used generously or cynically. Many misunderstand empathy. It's not just sympathizing or feeling others' pain, it's understanding others' psychological makeup. It's knowing how to get under their skin. Empathy can be wielded by brilliant politicians,